Hello and welcome everybody to the unit's latest webinar in which we're hitting the gridiron to talk all about the NFL betting experience. NFL fans are some of the most passionate in sports, of course, but too often their betting experience doesn't quite match their enthusiasm for the game. With markets growing at different speeds worldwide, product design needs to move beyond one size fits all. By investing in design and strategic outsourcing, operators can build smarter, faster, and more fan-centric betting experiences this NFL season and beyond. My name's Ryan Bailey, Chief Operating Officer for the Americas at Red Knot Communications. I'll be moderating this conversation today. I am joined by David McKenny, Product Owner at the unit, and Casey Halpern, US General Manager at ProfitDuel. Thank you very much indeed, gents, for joining me today. David, if it's okay, I'll come to you first. I'll throw the first pass to you, if you will. The title of this session, of course, Building the NFL Betting Experience Fans Deserve. So in your view, top line thoughts here. What does the ideal experience actually look like for the consumer?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's got to be fast and pretty seamless mobile first. We know that most fans will bet during live play, and typically that'll be on the go. For NFL, we want to make it highly contextual as well. Betting options should be integrated into the flow of the game, whether that's kind of drive level or player props or game momentum. And then, yeah, for me, I think you want to make it quite personalized as well. So, like, we want to surface markets that are kind of based on the user's history, their favorite team, their player interests, and really just feeds kind of back into that narrative around their game day experience as a sort of second screen.
Yeah. Casey, does that chime with you?
Yeah, I would, for the most part, agree with that. Obviously, the NFL is kind of already the crown jewel of U.S. sports betting, and fans have no shortages of apps, markets, or even promos to engage with, which is where we specialize. But in so many ways, the betting experience is very strong. That being said, though, I do think there is a lot of meat left on the bone, so to speak. I think fans expect betting to kind of match the drama they're seeing unfold on TV with Sunday football. So kind of like that fast, frictionless, fun action. But as David said, that means smarter product design, clearer education, and way more personalization. It's kind of, in my opinion, less about reinventing the wheel and more about elevating what's already there that meets the passion of NFL fans.
That's interesting, Casey. Do you mean like sort of matching the quality of the TV product almost with the betting product then?
I do think that's where we're heading, yes. Because look, I think we as consumers are very spoiled with the product we do get on TV, and I think we want that experiences to kind of be aligned with what we get on Sunday, right? We want our betting experiences to be somewhat similar in a sense. It will never be the same, obviously, but look, we have lofty expectations, so we expect those to be met at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Let's dig into that a little bit later, Casey. I'm very interested in that idea. David, from a product standpoint, though, what's the hardest part of building NFL betting experiences that feel both innovative and also user-friendly? That sounds like a challenge.
Yeah, I think probably the big challenge there is delivering that kind of depth of field with what's available in the NFL from a market's perspective without drowning the user out. And I probably speak from the perspective of someone based in UK and Ireland markets in particular. There's a lot more complexity in the NFL compared to some of the sports that we're typically used to dealing with. So definitely balancing that complexity with simplicity so that we don't make the hundreds and hundreds of discrete markets that you have available in the NFL feel easy to navigate. And yeah, we don't want that level of choice to overwhelm users, particularly when we bring NFL markets into different regions. And then probably a little bit more so than we would see with typical field sports like soccer or rugby or anything of that description is the data latency and reliability, just with the fast nature of plays occurring every 25 seconds or so, is something that we're not used to seeing in the sort of European sports.
So it sounds, David, like there's a challenge to keep things simple, but also complex enough that it caters to the audience correctly.
Yeah, so I mean, we need to have that core product experience there, and we shouldn't sort of strip the features for maybe less educated markets as well. But we need to, yeah, find clever user experience ways to sort of guide them through that journey. And I suppose a good example is probably things like same game parlays, where we can make them a little bit more narrative driven and allow a user to, build a complex multi-leg bet in a way that kind of makes simple sense to their sort of core understanding of what's going to unfold within a game. Where it's telling a story of maybe like a quarterback throwing a certain yardage, a wide receiver carrying the ball a certain distance.
Okay. Casey, is there a gap between what NFL fans expect from their betting experience and what they're actually getting? And maybe this comes back to our previous point about the TV experience. Maybe it's a bit about convenience culture as well and what's expected from other sports too.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, Ryan, actually, the convenience part. Short answer is yes. I do think there is a gap. However, the apps work. They are getting better and better every day. The FanDuels, the DraftKings of the world are, in my opinion, kind of second to none and in this kind of landscape, but they're not always built for the NFL fans specifically, right? There are a lot of sports books out there, and most fans can place a bet easily, but most fans also just want more than just transactions, right? They want kind of like experiences. They want to feel like it's, as I said before, it's football itself, right? It's fast, it's emotional, it's social, it's interactive. I do think there are a few areas that can really bridge that gap, right? With just better in-play betting, UX, obviously more tools for the consumer, whether it's same game parlays or perhaps like integrating, I don't know, maybe like one of our ProfitDuel tools onto your platform. Just smoother integrations with your fantasy team, or perhaps like the red zone channel as a whole. It still boggles my mind that I know there's a lot of red tape around this, but there's not any one-stop shopping, right? Yes, there is one-stop line shopping, but you can't bet directly where you get those lines, right? If I am on ProfitDuel's website and I'm looking at the odds, and I see the best number on the Jets money line, and I want to bet on the Jets, I have to now go open up wherever sports book that is, and I have to go log in, I have to go find that bet again. Whereas if I was just envisioning a perfect experience, I would be able to click on that odds on the profitable website. I'd already be logged in automatically through my credentials, through my subscription, and it would all be synced up, and I'd be able to place the bet right then and there. I think that's a very seamless experience, and I would like to see the industry probably get to a point in that. I know there's a lot of red tape around that. We actually tried this when I was at ProfitX, what formerly was Profit Exchange. We were working with Pickett to build basically in-app betting from Pickett's side. However, there is as I said, a ton of red tape. There's a lot of regulatory challenges behind this. Obviously, geolocation, but look, I think technology is superior in 2025, and I don't see a reason why we can't innovate to a point of this place.
Okay, so it's about integration between different technologies and brands then, Casey.
Yeah, I think that's where there's a gap currently.
Okay, that's very interesting. David, Casey touched on UX there, and it's often cited as the true differentiator in betting. So what does great UX actually mean in the context of an NFL betting app on any given Sunday?
Yeah, I think Casey touched on it nicely there. On game day, speed is going to be key. So from a UX perspective, we really can't wait to navigate clunky menus to be able to make a bet. It should be completely frictionless experience, and we need to really streamline that from a UX perspective. So that's going to come back down to how we prioritize markets, make sure that we're surfacing the most relevant bets quickly, that we're not trolling through menus to find something. And it should be really fast loading. Instant bet placement is going to come into this as well. And yeah, coming back to contextual design, so we need to map things to the game flow. We should update our menus with the game state. So whether that's particular plays, fourth and short, or whatever it is, my knowledge of specific plays are maybe a little bit less than Casey's here, but driving it back into that narrative of where the game is going to go at a certain point, and making that story-driven experience quickly accessible in real time is what we want to prioritize from a UX perspective.
There you go. You were fourth and inches from getting that parlance just on point there,
That's
David. Can you share an example, David, of a feature or a design element that seems simple on the surface but makes a massive difference in practice for the better?
Yeah, I guess we're probably going to talk about same game parlays a lot here, but that is a nice, clear, intuitive one that makes complex multi-leg betting for, I guess, for novice users in particular, a really easy journey. From that user perspective, we know that fans want to collect that narrative of what's going to happen on a drive or overall of like yardage that a quarterback might put up, and that same game parlay bet, it gives them the ability to tell the story of what they think is going to happen and sort of bring that into their game watching experience and subsidize that experience. So that transforms then something that could be quite complex if we think of maybe older systems and navigating through trolls and trolls of menus to dig up certain legs, to make it more guided and streamlined, and make it feel personalized really against what their view of the game is going to be. Um, in terms of operators as well, then we know that same game parlay is a massive driver of engagement as well, and it's a key differentiator. Not all products do it quite well or have a smooth flow in there, and the ones that do really stand out.
Yeah. Casey, have your thoughts on that? Is there something very simple, design or feature-wise, that really makes a big hit, big difference?
I don't know if this is a simple answer, but it's my honest answer. I just think speed, kind of simplicity, and relevance, as David was saying. I think that's what it all comes down to, in my opinion. Off the top of my head, is there something specifically I would like added? Sure, I'm sure I could come up with a laundry list, but I don't know if we want to keep the ru webinar running that long.
Fair enough. All right. David, let's talk about different territories. Obviously, this is an expanding sport. There's a game coming up this weekend at Croke Park. Very exciting times ahead for the Irish market as well. So, how does NFL product need to be different in different territories, David, in your opinion? Are there cultural differences at play here between US, UK, Irish fans? Uh, is there a different way to shape the betting experience for different territories?
Yeah, definitely. I think well, fundamentally the rules of the sport don't change, but the language of betting will around those different locales, and that experience is all going to tie in kind of culturally to what's popular in those specific regions. We know US fans are definitely more accustomed to fantasy sports and stats-driven betting, so player props and micro markets are obviously bigger there than they kind of have been historically in the UK, although that's maybe changing a little bit or gradually increasing. We know in UK and Ireland, people are used to kind of more traditional betting formats like spreads and accumulators, totals. So when we bring it into those kind of new regions, I think what's kind of key is to balance. The UX needs to balance really what those markets are familiar with, while also introducing NFL specific features with a kind of level of friction in there. And yeah, I guess as we go into markets that are completely new to the sport, it's really that kind of early stage education stuff we need to bring around it as well to make it accessible. Because as we touched on previously, from my Irish perspective, I might not know the correct terminology for certain play and what those outcomes should be. So I think the education piece is kind of key as well.
Yeah, that's got to be big, hasn't it, Casey? Familiarity of the game in different territories has really got to dictate how the experience runs.
Absolutely. And I would just say, look, I have limited experience kind of in abroad territories when it comes to gaming. However, I do know the UK market very well. I would also just say US fans kind of live for that long shot parlay, right? That opportunity to really win big. And the downside of this is obviously there's a lot of affiliate websites out there with media networks that kind of broadcast that and make it seem like the norm. So the US consumer kind of becomes accustomed to thinking that it is very commonplace for someone to hit a 1 in 200 long shot, right? So you obviously see someone else do it. It's like, ooh, a light bulb goes off. It's like, I could do that now. So why? I think that's a big deferring part as well. Like US consumers are all about the parlay, whereas I think the UK bettor is more sophisticated in that sense, right? They understand value a bit more. They're not betting five to I don't know 20 leg plus parlays out there every day, but I think that's where it is a bit different, and that's why a lot of the US products are really tailored to that parlay and the same game parlay. I don't think there's no one size fits all narrative that would work. In the US, parlays are king. In the UK, it's all about kind of like sharp pricing and deep main markets, which would matter more in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Casey. Definitely. Um, David, can we talk about the outsourcing for design and development, which is obviously becoming increasingly common? Where do external partners get the most value for the NFL ready products from, say, someone like the unit?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, partners are going to bring in a fresh perspective and kind of prevent operators from trying to reinvent the wheel, maybe if it's a new domain that they're stepping into. For us, I think as well, one thing that we pride ourselves on is specialization. We've the ability to bring cross-market experience and best practices from other sports and verticals into any kind of project that we take on. So if that's in the case of NFL as well, as we kind of touched on in terms of different markets, having that ability to bring in some expertise from, say, maybe what's more commonplace in the UK for expanding into new territories. Another big advantage, I think, is just speed to market. That ability to bring in dedicated teams to focus on specific delivery is just going to get faster speeds to market. And probably the third kind of point I'd focus on is innovation. Not through any lack of determination to do so. Operators are often focused on the core business, and sometimes that stifles innovation. I think with external partners, it really just gives the ability to dedicate some resource to really focus on experimentation and introducing sort of new innovations into the product.
Yeah. Casey, a big question for you now. What's more important in your opinion? Is it the quality of the product or the pricing, the lines? Now, you may have a perspective from ProfitDuel's perspective here for sure, and there may be even some territorial stuff to talk about, like you mentioned, the UK market having more of a emphasis maybe on the lines as well. So, where do you stand on this, product or pricing? What's more valuable?
This is a great question, Ryan. And look, this is difficult for me to like answer just like as one size fits all, honestly, because I think this is answer will be different for every type of bettor, right? For someone like myself, someone who does value betting and is, I don't know, I'm not a sharp in the slightest bit, but kind of understand what's going on. I have a lot of sharp friends. I have a lot of sophisticated bettors. If you ask them this question, the answer 100% of the time is the pricing, right? That's going to get you in the door and keep you there. As long as you have good odds, we're going to find you. We're looking at odds screens every day. We are searching the best number and we are going to go bet the best number. However, that being said, as I was talking about with the everyday US better, it's not all about that. It's really about product quality. The product is what will keep you there. I think lines could be a bit commoditized, a bit, where every operator will be within a few cents of each other. However, now with the introduction of prediction markets and exchanges like Sportrade, Novig, and ProfitX, which I all think are excellent platforms and have superior pricing, that's going to attract a lot more sophisticated bettors. However, at the main sports books, I think product quality is where you're going to win your loyalty, right?
Mm.
If it's fast, if it's fun, if it's frictionless, is it personalized? Steve Rudock, who is I think a great narrator in the space and has a great newsletter, actually speaks about this in his Straight to the Point newsletter. Whereas, right, if you're going to a supermarket, you obviously want to go to one where it has the best prices for almost everything you're betting on, right? You're not going to go to 20 different supermarkets to get 20 different items just because you're getting the best price there. I firmly do agree with that sentiment, and how it applies to sports betting. I think we could acknowledge that sharps do care about price, but look, at the end of the day, sharps make up are such a small fish in a big pond where I would say 95 to 99% of NFL fans are really going to be just driven by product experience, personalization, and kind of integrations.
Yeah. Shout out to Steve and straight to the point. We're big fans here as well, Casey. Is it fair to say, Casey, then for pricing is it most important for acquisition and product for retention? Is it that simple?
I would think so. Look, it depends on what product you're trying to build here. I think it also boils down to that, but for the most part, yes.
Yeah, okay. David, any perspective on that? I presume you'll champion the product side of things.
Yeah, for sure. I think Casey kind of hit the nail on the head, first of all, by saying pricing is what gets you in the door. But I think to an extent, products pricing will keep you there if it stays competitive. But for that recreational better, we think it's probably product that's going to keep them there if it's a good experience. And that's I think that's kind of what you touched on with the sort of 95% or so of that recreational better. If they're having a good fun experience, the pricing is maybe slightly less important, but without good pricing, you're not going to get them through the door.
Yeah. Okay. Another big question for you both here. Casey, I'll come to you first. And this maybe touches on your opening salvo about sort of the TV experience and what's lacking in the betting experience. Is there one thing that would really improve the betting experience that the industry hasn't yet delivered?
Oof.
It's a big one.
It's a loaded question because, look, as much as I do love to see innovation, I do definitely am mindful of the fact that the consumer might, this just opens up a can of worms for consumers and kind of what's available to bet it into and stuff like that. I don't know if there's anything off the top of my head that I think would match like the red zone feel. But I'm sure someone smarter than me and someone who is more hands-on the product can figure that part out. But I think one thing that I would love to see most, just from a personal perspective, is more transparency kind of around like what I could bet on, how much I could get down, limits, stuff like that. Some sports books don't really show me that at the onset, where I think FanDuel does a great job with this. If I put a number into FanDuel and I'm trying to bet into a market, let's say I put $1,000 on it, they'll tell me exactly what my max wager is in red right under it before I could even move forward. Some sports books, you're going to get a spinning wheel, you're going to get it sent to the trader, you're going to be buffering for a long time. I would like more transparency, personally speaking. I think for the regular consumer, I think education would be really nice touch. I think fans and consumers do deserve clarity. I think there are terms even in the match betting community that confuse people. I just think better education and more tools would build more trust and engagement. And then I think there's a social community integration aspect, which I spoke on earlier. There's no place where you could just do it all at once, right? Um, I think that would be unique. And at the end of the day, fans, friends, communities, they most likely want to bet together or against each other, so to speak. But there are places you could do that now. Um, I don't know. I think there's a lot of runway here when it comes to kind of building the next frontier of the betting experience.
Yeah, for sure. To pick up on that red zone idea as well, Casey, does that infer sort of more micro betting, betting on individual drives and smaller moments in the game?
Yes, I definitely can envision that. I think a lot of technology leaps need to be made with the lag between obviously the TV time and the betting markets and
Mm.
speed there, latency and data and all that. David could probably speak to that better than I can. But look, I would have to envision there will be a world where what you're watching on Red Zone will be eerily similar to what you're seeing on your sports book in real time, right? And there might be some sort of, I don't know, tailored markets to kind of what happens next on Red Zone or something like that. I think that there there's some potential there. It just obviously comes down to the speed and latency and all that.
Yeah, definitely. David, how does that sit with you? Is there something you think that could be improved in the betting experience currently?
Yeah, I probably would have largely piggybacked off what Casey said there. I think a lot of that rings true, certainly from my perspective. It's integration with that sort of broadcast ecosystem would be where I would like to see the innovations go. And just as we kind of touched on, I guess throughout really is that sort of narrative aspect of what's happening on a Sunday or any given game day, really, of having that real fan hub experience and tying into that second screen a bit more closely. I think Red Zone in particular is quite an interesting one for international fans as well, because we don't really have the equivalent in sports over here. So yeah, I think really bringing that kind of excitement of what's going to happen next at any given game is definitely something we'd like to improve on within the product sphere.
Good stuff. All right, gents, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you both very much for your time. Final question for you. It's a two-parter. David, come to you first. Who's going to win at Croke Park this Sunday? Steelers versus Vikings. And I'm going to need your Super Bowl pick as well, please.
Well, I certainly wouldn't put a bet on any of my selections here. I definitely have a poor track record, even in the sports I'm more familiar with. But yeah, I think I'll go Steelers for Croke Park. And for Super Bowl, I'm just going to stay loyal to who I've got in the units, NFL Buster, and go for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay. Casey,
Okay.
what are you thinking?
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Blind
Look,
loyalty.
they're off a solid start, 2-1 under a new coach. Whoa, that's gonna take me a second, Ryan. One sec. I don't
Yeah,
know
that was a
how
big one. Yeah.
I
follow
did
up there.
warn you it would be a wild pick.
This weekend, please, if you are watching this, I highly recommend you do not tail whatever I say. I'll take the Vikings. I think their pass rush is going to be too much for a aging, egotistical maniac and Aaron Rodgers. But I like the Vikings this weekend. Super Bowl pick. I'll stick with what I said before the season. Ravens against Packers. If I were to change it, I might throw the Chargers in there, but I'll stick with it. Ravens versus Packers. I don't know who's going to win yet, but I have the Packers, a personal betting ticket on the Packers. So sure, we'll say the Packers actually.
All right, good stuff. Thank you very much again, gents. Casey Halpern and David McKenny. Thank you very much indeed for your time. And thank you for watching this with us. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please do in the comments. But for now, thank you very much. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Thanks, Ryan.
Cheers, guys.